Memphis Grizzlies beat the San Antonio Spurs 129-115. And all anybody wants to talk about today is the jaw dunk on Wemby that did not count. But before we get there, we will end with a dunk. We will start with a dunk. Grizz-Spurs, Edey Wemby. Comment dit-on? He too little en français. Il est trop petit. Head taps, a universal signal. Ja Morant, not French, but Ja Morant will make you say wee! And also a little ooh la la, the casual no-look turnaround here to Santi Aldama. Ja with 8 points and 5 assists in the first quarter. Grizzlies trailed by 12 at half. Activate third quarter Grizz. Downhill Desmond Bane with 7 of his 21 points coming in that third quarter. Ja Morant, he's always one to take the scenic route. Gives us some views and, oh look, it's a castle. Grizz, down 6 later in the third. A couple big bench performances last night. Santi Aldama, the spin, the scoop, and one. He had 20 and 10. Tie game, can't waste a job behind the back gem. Brandon Clark finds Luke Kennard, who knocks down one of his 5 threes to give the Grizzlies the lead. The Grizzlies won the third quarter, 43-25. Now, Wemby did have 8 blocks in the first half, but Jaren Jackson Jr., unafraid, came alive in the fourth, teaches Wemby the electric slide with this step-back 3 as the Grizzlies close this game on a 20-5 run. Now, this Ja Morant fake and finish was an absolute beaut. But before we say goodbye, it's bonjour, bonjour, oh my God! Dunk on your head, Victor Banana Bread. Grizzlies win 129-115. And yes, that was a quote from Passport to Paris, the great Mary-Kate and Ashley film of the early 2000s. And yes, that dunk was absolutely unbelievable, CJ.
You're feeling yourself, aren't you?
Francais.
You're feeling yourself, aren't you?
I took 10 years of French for this moment. Edey dunks on Wemby. And I texted social media superstar Luke. I said, if I'm not able to say he too little in French because the Grizzlies don't win this game, I'm not coming in tomorrow. Like, it's over. I will be so upset. And then for Ja to have that dunk on Wemby at the end was just the perfect bookend of a night for the Grizzlies in a game where it did not always feel like they were going to win. And I remember thinking going into it, like, God, if you can just limit Wemby, don't let somebody else beat you. Keldon Johnson was almost the somebody else who was going to beat the Grizzlies at some points. But they really, that second half, the adjustments that were made, loved to see the lineups with Jaren and Santi. Shout out, some of that defense from Santi Aldama on Victor Wembanyama last night was tremendous. Just a great win. It's amazing how much better it feels coming after a Grizzlies win. And how one dunk that doesn't count from Ja Morant can make you say, maybe the Spurs won't rule the world for the rest of all time. Maybe Victor Wembanyama won't sit upon that throne forever and always. The audacity of some of the things that Ja Morant tries. And the best running bit in all of basketball is that man told us he was not going to dunk again. He said he wasn't going to dunk. Someone put it on a t-shirt. I think Good Hippie's working on a t-shirt, and I will be buying it immediately. Where were you when Ja Morant dunked on Victor Wembanyama?
I was laying in bed and saw that come through and said, oh, okay. All right. Like, that's we talked about it some before the show. Like, great athletes do things at times to let you know that they're bored with their greatness and they want to see, and it sounds ridiculous, but they just want to see what all they are physically capable of doing and what all they can be. When we talked about it, one of the examples I gave was Brett Favre dropping back for no damn reason other than, I think I can. Just throwing the ball into triple coverage and seeing what happens. And oftentimes it will result in a big play or a touchdown. And Brett's like, oh, I'm good enough to do that. An example you brought up when we were talking was Patrick Mahomes. Like, okay, I'm just going to no-look and throw this. Why am I no-looking? I don't know, to see if I can do it. Magic Johnson would do that. Some of the no-looks were legit to get people going the opposite way. Some of them, though, a healthy number of them, was just, I'm bored with the game right now. I'm Magic. I'm better than everybody else on the court. I'm bored. Let me see if I can do this. LeBron does that from time to time. Some of the shots Steph takes, some of those shots are, how far back can I go? Right? Yes. And Ja Morant has that in him where he is great and he's getting bored with the greatness. So now it's like, can I dunk on the 7'4" dude who's probably going to win Defensive Player of the Year? Why the hell not find out? Let's go. The whistle's already blown. Let's find out. He's standing there. He's looking like he's going to jump with me. Let's find out if I can put it on his head.
I will give Victor Wembanyama credit. Like, he didn't make a business decision. He contested it. And he's contested. Who dunked on Victor earlier this year? Somebody else did the same thing, and Victor went up straight with it. It's a bad thing to be a Spurs big on the opposite end of a Ja Morant. Do you call that a poster? Some people got upset because it's not the essence of a poster. It's Ja Morant over someone who is 7'5" in shoes, a true alien. That is like straight out of Space Jam. It's a poster. Give it the designation.
Listen.
Would you put that on a poster?
Listen.
Would you make that your wallpaper?
No, it will be.
Yeah, and of course you wouldn't. You're a hater.
It will be on a poster though. Like
and it will be someone's wallpaper.
But for it to be a poster, it's got to count.
It was Kobe White was the other one.
Okay, thank you.
You think it has to count? You think the count part of it?
It has to count. It was
in just. It's like I wish it was in football where you could decline the penalty.
Yeah. Oh yeah. They
just for this one time.
Decline.
Can you just decline the penalty for God's sake and let it stand? They spent. I watched SportsCenter this morning because I was curious how they would cover it, and they did talk about it at least 7 times throughout the broadcast, and then you get to the top plays. They did not call it a top play because it did not count. And they tried to reckon it to the same stretch of, how many times have we seen Steph Curry in warm-ups do something so cool? I'm like, that's warm-ups. That's not in a game.
And that's nobody contesting either in
yes.
warm-ups. Yeah. And
that's silly.
And to me, it's stupid to compare a three-point shooter to a dunk.
I agree.
Like, I don't
get care how deep it is.
I don't get the same energy from a three-point shooter being phenomenal from 3 as I do from a dude dunking on somebody else, right? Like that to me is a poor analogy and comparison. But that's where we are in the NBA right now, where the three-point shooting is what gets the people really excited in the dunks. Unless you're Ja Morant dunking on 7'4" Wembanyama, that they don't necessarily as much. Well, but when I was a kid, like that's what it was. It was, hey, that big is down there waiting on you. Go put it on his head if you can. And that was the things that got everybody worked up. And the Grizzlies got worked up. Even though it didn't count, they got worked up. Desmond Bane in particular, I think the very next possession, he hit a big-time 3. He was flying around on the defensive end. You just saw the intensity for the team pick up after that moment because it was something that sort of fed into everybody else's psyche. And that's one of the things with dunks that can happen. Right? And I think dunks are, for me, the most exciting play in all of sports because of how it can energize an entire team for the next 3 or 4 minutes, right? And you saw that in this Grizzlies game and why Ja Morant's dunks do matter more than just the 2 points or the no points in this case, that they count for because they energize, they galvanize everybody. Everyone's like, yeah, that's my guy. If he's doing that, look at what I'm going to do. It's exciting.
And the demoralization on the other side of a dunk like that, like Chris Paul in the back of the picture, there were so many spectacular still shots of the Ja dunk and the one that the Grizzlies put out. Chris Paul standing there like, you've got to be effing kidding me in this moment. And there's him, but even watching like the difference between the Grizzlies teammates, Luke Kennard is in the back of the whiter version of that shot. Just like, I can't believe it. Jaren is overlooking. Everyone's reaction is spectacular. But you want to know who treats it like it's just anything else? Ja. Mike Wallace was in the locker room last night after the win, and he was asking Ja about the dunk, and this is the interaction that the two of them had. Take a listen.
It don't count, so it's not a dunk. Ja, the people back in Memphis, man, they wanted us to ask you about this one. Like, just like you went for it, right? I mean, you could have just not, you heard the whistle, you could have just laid it up or whatever.
The whistle was on my gathering, so that I kept going with the play because normally I don't hear no whistle when I, drive to the rack or anything. So.
All right, but when you saw him and you saw the opportunity,
another person at the rim.
All right.
So I dunked on plenty of people, bro. He don't get no pass either. If you at the rim, I'm gonna try you if it's that situation.
But he told us he wasn't dunking anymore.
He did.
Okay.
It was a joke.
The Jessica Benson Show with CJ Hart, live every weekday at 8 a.m.